let's get started on the real subject of today. I know we just had a quiz, but I have one more quiz question for you, and I swear it's easy. Fill in the blank for me. I see a little concerned faces here and there. If you had any doubt, the correct answer is can. Okay, so people who are blind can use maps on their smartphones. But if you've worked with accessibility before, you know accessibility is not all about visual impairments. So I want to revise this sentence a bit and say instead, people of all abilities can use maps on their smartphones. But I also want to add a slight disclaimer. If developers do it right. And that is why I'm here today. I'm here to show you how to do it right with your maps and navigations so people of all abilities can use your app. I'm going to give you some best practices, and the first of which is a bit meta. Challenge why you have a map in the first place. Think about it. Why did you add that map view? What is your real reason? How does it add value to the user experience? And if you can't think of a good reason, no big deal, delete the map. Go ahead. And find a better way to communicate the most important information you need to the user. A really good example of this is on Facebook Marketplace. So here I've searched for a couch, and Facebook, for each of these items, they have a precise location. They have a longitude and latitude. But they didn't use that as a reason to immediately show me my search results on a map. Instead, they know the most important things for me are the photo, the price, and the description. So it makes way more sense to use a grid view. This is a good decision by Facebook. But for your app, you may find when you question yourself that you do have a real reason that adds value to use the traditional map format. And if you do, I have another best practice for you, another challenge. Challenge what kind of map you really need to show the user. Because out of the box, when you put a map view into your application, your user is going to be able to pan and zoom and scroll literally all over the world. And this sounds like, oh, that's cool, he has so much freedom. But you have some users who struggle with maps, and this freedom is a huge distraction. It'll get them off task of what they're trying to do in your application. So here, we want to ask ourselves, what task does the user need to accomplish with this map? And then give your users the most simple version that does just that. In practice, this could mean hiding some annotations that really aren't too important, showing only the most important stuff on the map, limiting the scope to a reasonable area so they don't start exploring other countries, and even deactivating some gestures that may not be necessary if they don't need to do a whole lot with your map. The simplification of the map is really important because the more complicated our maps get, the more we run the risk of overwhelming those users that aren't fans of maps, that don't understand them, that really struggle. And so, in the same vein of avoiding this situation where you overwhelm your users, I want to propose best practice number 3, to let your users choose to see your map. If you open an app for the first time, and you see a full screen map, and it's colorful and annotated and moving, and there's a bunch of stuff on there, it can be a bit of a shock. So why not start off with a format that's more digestible for a diverse audience, and then let your users see it on a map if they choose to? Airbnb is a great example of this, because when you search for something for a rental location, you see the search results first as a list. It's great. And only when you press this button down here at the bottom will you see the same information represented on the traditional map view. And this right here is a wonderful compromise for your users, so your diverse audience using your app, that people who don't like maps are not going to be presented with it first thing. And people who do, they're only one button click away from seeing it. So it works for everybody. At this point, we've challenged ourselves for why we have a map, challenged what kind of map we need, and then we've arranged our app so our users choose to see it. Finally, we can start talking about what's inside the map, which brings us to best practice number 4, to expose your map details to assistive technology. In this best practice, we want to make sure that an assistive technology like VoiceOver, like switch control, can actually reach all of the important items on your map view. And not only that, but for each item, we want to make sure we have a really good description of it. And I'll show you why. So imagine we have our application with some annotations. Assistive technology has something called an accessibility focus that's going to land on all of the important items and announce to the user what it is that it is focused on. So we want to make sure everything that is important can be accessed by this accessibility focus, because if it's not, then there's no way for the user to interact with it. So hopefully it wasn't important. But anyway, so yeah, we want the accessibility focus to be able to land on everything. And then we also want to have a good description. So imagine kind of a simulated VoiceOver experience here on the right, where I've taken away the visual component of your map, but we're still going to see where the accessibility focus is falling. And here, so we've selected our first annotation. On VoiceOver, you'd hear an announcement that says map pin, as in the focus is on a map pin. And that's well and good, but that doesn't tell me anything. So let's try the next one. Also map pin, and map pin, and map pin, and map pin. This is the user experience you give to your users using assistive technology if you don't add accessibility labels. And if you excuse the pun, someone seeing that will be completely lost. It was bad, sorry. So yes, make sure the focus reaches your elements and that they all have labels. Moving on. People who've worked with accessibility before, you may be thinking, come on, Robin, you're talking about accessibility labels? It's so basic. We talk about this all the time. But the basics are critical, which is why I propose best practice number 5, to take care of your accessibility basics. So everything that you have on your list for accessibility, it can be applied to a map view. So supporting portrait and landscape mode, light and dark mode, having your text rescale with dynamic type, making sure your touch targets are big enough, that the colors you choose for your annotations meet the minimum contrast ratio. All of that can be applied to your map. You just got to take the time to check those little boxes. It's often very quick, but we can't move on to the more interesting parts of accessibility until we get these basics taken care of. And the more interesting parts that I love to talk about are about the user experience. Now, if you've never used an assistive technology with an app, like used VoiceOver or switch control, it's very, very slow, and it's clunky, and it gets even slower and even clunkier when you start dealing with complex UI components, aka a map, which is very complex. So as engineers, we want to do everything we can to improve, to simplify, to streamline the experience for our users on assistive technology. So best practice number 6, simplify the user experience. And there's tons of ways that we can do this. Today I'll show you just one, and it's related to the quiz question. We're going to talk about the accessibility rotor. And if you've never seen this rotor before, which based on the replies, I think there's a few of you, this is new for, you turn VoiceOver on, and then you're going to make a very specific gesture. This is where you get your pointer finger and your thumb, and you pretend like you're opening a teeny tiny little doorknob. So you kind of twist. And like that, you'll see the rotor pop up. Now the rotor, it contains a bunch of options and settings that your users are going to want to change on the fly as they're going through your application. And what's cool for us, we can add some custom options in there, which is exactly what we're going to do. Going back to our example. So let's say here the red annotations are parks, the light blue are restaurants, no, the light blue are hotels, and the dark blue are restaurants. And imagine I'm using VoiceOver and I want to find a park to go to. So I start with the accessibility focus. We now have our accessibility label, so I know what I have selected here. So I see Hampton Inn, Central Park, Burger King, flip, 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 and eventually get to the park that I want. Depending on how many annotations you have on your map, that could take a while. So what can we do to simplify this? We can add a custom rotor option called parks. And when I activate this option, the accessibility focus is only going to land on the annotations that are parks. So now when I go through, I see only Central Park, MacArthur Park, and Maumelle Park. And just like that, you've simplified and made it so much faster for me to find what I want. Now, I hear some of y'all's thoughts right now. I don't know, man. This custom rotor must be hard to add something custom to it. No, actually, it's very, very easy. So here in your code, imagine you already have some way to store an array of the annotation views that you're going to be showing on the map. All you have to do, step one, take a subset of this array for the one you want to deal with here, parks, and then you create the custom rotor item, which is of type UI accessibility custom rotor. Give it a name, and inside you add a teeny bit of logic that tells the system which annotation is the previous and which one is the next. So it knows how to handle the accessibility focus flow. And then finally, there's a property called accessibility custom rotors that you can use on your map view and just assign this new rotor that you made. And voila, it's done. So very easy to do, but has a very big impact for your users on assistive technology. Now, if we move on to touch on the navigation part just a little bit, most of you are not going to be recreating a turn-by-turn Google Maps navigation inside your own map. Makes sense. Most of you are going to outsource this to an existing application like Apple Maps or Google Maps. And this is great. This is perfectly fine if you follow best practice number 7, which is to outsource with options. And by this, I mean, don't assume just because your user has an iPhone that they only use Apple Maps. Give them a few options. Ask them, do you want to open Apple Maps directly? Do you want to open Google Maps? Or let them copy the address to the clipboard so that they can paste it into this application over here that you've never heard of, but it meets their needs perfectly for the navigation. So make sure you give them some options and accommodate for your diverse audience. And the last best practice that I'm going to leave you with today is a classic, but super important. Test with real people who use assistive technology. Compared to other UI components, the map, we have a lack of guidelines. We have a lack of regulations. We have a lack of best practices on how to make them more accessible. So our most valuable resource are the people who actually use assistive tech and actually use your application. So it's with them we need to talk, we need to get feedback and incrementally improve the accessibility of our maps. Let's see, what else? Yes, it is the end. So we're going to bring this to a close. Going back to the beginning, people of all abilities can use maps on their smartphones if developers do it right. I've given you 8 ways to do it right, 8 best practices to improve the accessibility of your maps and navigation so that people of all abilities can use it. There's so much more we can do, so much more than these 8, but this will at least get you on the right path to having a more accessible application. I'm Kanatzar, and it has been a pleasure talking about one of my favorite subjects with you guys. If you have any questions, because this is a lightning talk, you can post them here on Slido, and I'll answer as soon as I can on Slack. And if you want to know more about accessibility, you can scan this QR code over on the left side and subscribe to the accessibility newsletter I send out, or join a Slack group with other developers that love accessibility too. And even hop into my newest project where I can put you in contact with those real people who use assistive technology and can help you test your applications. And last but certainly not least, if you catch me before the end of the day, I do have stickers. Thank you for your attention and enjoy the rest of the conference.